Look at your paycheck. Somewhere on it is a word that's been lying to you your entire life. The word is salary. You think it just means money, the amount you get paid, the number on the check. But the word salary doesn't come from money. It doesn't come from gold. It doesn't come from coins. It comes from a Roman word, salarium, which means salt. Because for most of human history, you were not paid in money. You were paid in salt. And the wars fought to control salt killed more human beings than any spice in history, more than nutmeg, more than pepper, more than saffron. The history of salt is the history of civilization itself, and nobody ever taught you the real story. This is not going to be a list of dates. This is not going to be a textbook. I'm going to take you back, to stand in the boots of the people who lived this, to feel what they felt, to see what they saw. Because the white powder sitting in your kitchen right now has a darker history than anything you could imagine. 5 stories, 5 lives, 1 mineral. This is the real history of salt. Our first story begins in a place that no longer has a name, with a person whose name was lost forever. Imagine you are alive, 8,000 years ago. You live in a small group of humans, somewhere in what is today the Middle East. You have no city, no village, no house, the way we think of houses. You have a fire, a tent of animal skin, a handful of stone tools, and every winter, your people die. Not from cold, not from war, from hunger. You can hunt in summer. You can gather berries in fall. But when winter comes, the animals disappear, the plants die, and whatever meat you killed in autumn has long since rotted, black, crawling with maggots, killing anyone who tries to eat it. This is the great enemy of your people, not predators, not enemies, time. Time turns food into poison, and there is nothing you can do until one day, a woman in your tribe drops a piece of meat into the salt pan. The salt pan is a natural feature near your camp, a shallow depression in the rocks where seawater collects and evaporates, leaving behind a white crust. Your people walk past it every day. The white powder is sometimes used to give food a strange taste, nothing more. But this woman, she's distracted. Maybe a child is crying. Maybe she stumbled. The meat falls into the salt. She picks it up, brushes it off, but the salt is stuck to it now, deep in the fibers. She puts it aside, forgets about it. 3 weeks later, she finds it again, and it has not rotted. The meat is dry, hard, strange looking, but not rotten. There are no maggots. There is no smell of death. Carefully, terrified, she takes a small bite. It does not kill her. In that single moment, a human being who has been forgotten by history, whose name we will never know, discovered something that would change everything. Salt preserves meat. She runs to tell the others. They don't believe her at first, but she shows them. She packs another piece of meat in salt. She waits. It does not rot. Word spreads, slowly at first, then faster, from tribe to tribe, valley to valley, across continents over 1,000 years. And human beings stopped dying in winter. For the first time, we could kill an animal in October, pack it in salt, and eat it in March. For the first time, we could stop following the herds, stop chasing the seasons, stop being nomads. We could build a village, a town, a city, a civilization. Salt did not just preserve meat, salt preserved us. And the woman who discovered it? We don't know her name. We don't know her face. We don't know where she is buried. But everything you are, everything you've ever known, every city you've ever seen, every book you've ever read, every word you've ever spoken, exists because she dropped a piece of meat into a puddle. That is where the story begins. But it is about to get much darker. Our second story takes us forward, 4,000 years, to the year 56 BC. You are a Roman soldier. Your name is Marcus. You are 19 years old. You have been in the army for 2 years. You are not a citizen. You are not rich. You joined the army because your family was poor, and the legions offered you food and a future. Right now, you are marching. You have been marching for 3 weeks, through forests, over mountains, across rivers. You are part of Julius Caesar's army, and you are heading deeper into Gaul, what we now call France, to fight a people you have never met. Your feet are bleeding. Your shoulders are raw from the weight of your pack. Your face is burned by the sun. But you are not afraid of the enemy. You are afraid of running out of salt. Every morning at sunrise, before the march begins, your centurion hands each soldier a small leather pouch. Inside is your daily ration: bread, dried meat, and a few crystals of salt. The salt is the most important thing in the pouch. Without it, you will die. Not from poisoning, from sweat. In the brutal heat of summer marches, a Roman soldier loses more salt through his skin in a single day than he can replace from food. Without resupply, his muscles cramp, his thoughts grow confused, his heart begins to fail. By the third day without salt, he collapses. This is not theory. This is documented in Roman military records. Hundreds of soldiers died this way, from the absence of a seasoning. So Caesar, and every general before him, built his entire strategy around one question: where is the next salt source? Roman roads were not built to connect cities. They were built to connect salt mines to armies. The Via Salaria, the Salt Road, was one of the first paved roads in human history. Caesar's invasion of Britain was partly motivated by British salt deposits. The fall of Carthage was partly caused by Rome cutting off their Mediterranean salt supply. Marcus, our soldier, doesn't know any of this. He just knows that when his pouch is full of salt, he can march another day. And one day, at the end of the month, his centurion calls him forward and hands him his pay. Not coins, a larger pouch of salt, Marcus's salarium, his salt money, the Latin word that, 2,000 years later, will become the English word salary. Marcus takes the pouch. He bows. He returns to his tent. That night, sitting by the fire, he licks a single crystal off his finger, and he thinks about his mother, back home in a village outside Rome. He has not seen her in 2 years. When his service is done, he will return with a sack full of salt, enough to buy a small farm, enough to give his family a future. That is what salt meant. Not flavor, not seasoning, survival, wealth, hope. Marcus dies 6 months later, in a battle, in a forest, in Gaul. But Rome marches on, and it marches on because of salt. Our third story takes us forward, another 1,000 years, and south, to the deadliest desert on earth, the Sahara. The year is 1352. The place is Timbuktu. You are a 16-year-old boy named Yusuf. You have just completed the hardest journey of your life. You and your father set out from a small town in North Africa 3 months ago, with a caravan of 200 camels. Half of those camels were carrying slabs of salt, massive blocks of it, cut from a mine in the Sahara called Tagaza. The work there is done by slaves. They cut the salt out of the desert floor with copper picks. They die in months, from thirst, from sun, from exhaustion. Their bodies are buried in shallow graves that the wind uncovers within weeks. Yusuf saw a body on the journey down, a man's hand sticking out of the sand. He has not been able to forget it. But the caravan must continue, across dunes the size of small cities, through sandstorms that bury entire animals, past the bones of previous caravans that did not survive. When you cross the Sahara, you are gambling your life against a desert, and the prize, if you win, is gold. Because Yusuf and his father are not just traders. They are walking into the richest empire that almost no one in your modern world has ever heard of, the Mali Empire. In 1352, the Mali Empire is wealthier than any kingdom in Europe, wealthier than the Byzantine Empire, wealthier than China. The reason is simple. Mali has gold, vast deposits of it, more than the rest of the world combined. But Mali has almost no salt, and in the brutal African heat, salt is not a seasoning. It is survival, just like for Marcus the Roman. So a trade was born. Yusuf's caravan arrives in Timbuktu after 83 days of walking. The city is beautiful beyond his imagination. Domes and minarets, libraries, markets that stretch farther than he can see. His father leads him to the central marketplace, where the great exchange happens. A merchant from Mali approaches. He examines the salt slabs carefully. He nods. Then a servant brings out a brass scale. On one side, they place a single slab of salt. On the other side, they begin to pile gold. coins, dust, nuggets, pouring it on until the scale balances. Yusuf watches in disbelief. The amount of gold is staggering, more than his entire village has ever seen. And then he realizes, the scale is level, perfectly balanced. A pound of salt for a pound of gold, ounce for ounce, equal value. In 1352, a white rock was worth the same as the most precious metal on earth. Yusuf and his father return north. They are rich. They will never have to work again. But Yusuf will never forget the dead man's hand in the sand, the slaves of Tagaza, the men who died so the salt could reach Mali. And he will spend the rest of his life wondering if any seasoning is worth that price. For nearly 1,000 years, it was. Our fourth story moves north, to France, to the year 1675. You are a man named Pierre. You are 32 years old. You are a farmer. You have 4 children. And tonight, you are going to commit a crime that could get you killed. You are going to smuggle salt. In France, in 1675, there is a law called the gabelle, the salt tax. Every French citizen must buy a fixed amount of salt every year, from the government, at a price the government sets. In Pierre's province, the price is high, devastatingly high, almost a quarter of his annual income. He cannot afford it. His children cannot afford it. But 20 miles east of his farm, the price is 1/20th of what he pays. The same salt, the same king, a line on a map. That line is what he is going to cross tonight. He is not alone. Tens of thousands of French citizens do this every year. They are called faux sauniers, salt smugglers. If caught, the punishment depends on the offense. For a man without weapons, galleys, 20 years rowing in the king's ships. Most do not survive 5. For a man caught with weapons, death by hanging. For a woman, whipping in the public square, branding with a hot iron. Then prison. For a child, whipping. Then forced labor. Pierre is not a criminal. He is a father trying to keep his family alive. He waits until midnight. He kisses his wife. He kisses each of his sleeping children. He picks up his small leather sack and he begins walking through forests, across streams, avoiding the king's salt patrols. He has done this 17 times before. Tonight, he is caught. 3 royal guards, hidden among the trees. They have been watching the smuggler's route for weeks. Pierre is dragged back to his village in chains. His wife screams. His children cry. The town watches in silence as he is loaded into a cart and taken away. He is sentenced to 15 years in the galleys. He dies in 3. His wife loses the farm. His children are sent to work in factories at the age of 9. All of this for a few pounds of salt. This story was repeated across France, hundreds of thousands of times, for over 400 years. By 1789, the French people were done. When the revolution finally exploded, when the Bastille was stormed and King Louis XVI was dragged to the guillotine, one of the very first acts of the new government was to abolish the gabelle. The salt tax fell, the king fell, the monarchy fell. A seasoning brought down a 1,000-year-old kingdom. Because they had pushed too far. They had crushed too many Pierres. They had hung too many fathers. And the people remembered. Our fifth and final story takes us to a different country, a different century, a different empire. But it is the same story. The year is 1930. The place is India. You are a thin, small man. You are 60 years old. You weigh barely 100 pounds. You wear nothing but a simple white cloth wrapped around your body. You are losing your hair. You have lost most of your teeth. You are not a king. You are not a general. You are not rich. You are not powerful. Your name is Mohandas Gandhi. And on this day, March 12, 1930, you are about to take on the largest empire in human history, with salt. For 3 centuries, the British have ruled India. They have built their empire on extraction. They take India's cotton, India's tea, India's spices, India's gold, India's labor, and they tax India's salt. Even though India is surrounded by ocean on 3 sides, even though every Indian beach is covered in natural salt deposits, even though the people of India, in their brutal heat, need salt more than they need almost anything else, Indians are forbidden by law from collecting their own salt, from the ocean their grandfathers fished, from the beaches their children play on. If they want salt, they must buy it from the British government, at a price the British have set. With a tax that takes up to 10% of a poor family's annual income, the British tax on salt is greater than the price of the salt itself. A peasant pays more in tax than the salt is worth. Gandhi has been thinking about this for years. He could organize a revolt, but the British army would crush it. He could call for war, but Indians would die by the hundreds of thousands. So instead, he announces something the world has never seen. He is going to walk from his ashram to the sea, 240 miles away, and when he gets there, he is going to bend down and pick up a single handful of salt. That is all. A handful of salt. The British laugh. The British Viceroy, Lord Irwin, writes in his private diary that the march is a publicity stunt that will fizzle in days. But on the morning of March 12th, Gandhi steps out of his ashram with 78 followers. By the second day, there are 500. By the seventh day, there are 5,000. By the time he reaches the coast, there are 60,000 people walking behind him. The largest peaceful protest the world has ever seen, and every newspaper on earth is covering it. On April 6, 1930, after 24 days of walking, Gandhi steps onto the beach at Dandi. He is exhausted. His feet are bleeding. His followers crowd around him. The cameras roll. He kneels down. He picks up a single handful of natural salt from the sand. He holds it up. To the cameras. To the world. It is illegal. It is also just salt. From the ground. The same salt that has been there for 10,000 years. The British have a choice. They can arrest him, or they can do nothing. Both choices destroy them. If they arrest a 60-year-old man for picking up sand, they look like monsters. The entire world is watching. If they do not arrest him, they admit that their law is meaningless. Their power is fake. The empire is just a story people tell themselves. The British don't arrest him, and then they arrest everyone else. 60,000 Indians in the weeks that follow. The world watches in horror as British soldiers beat unarmed protesters with sticks, as they drag old women into trucks, as they shoot into crowds. The newspapers in Britain show photographs. British citizens who had believed their empire was civilized suddenly see it for what it really is. And in that moment, on a beach in India, with a handful of salt, the British Empire began to die. It would take 17 more years. There would be more arrests, more violence, more suffering. But Gandhi had revealed the secret. The British Empire, like the French monarchy before it, like every empire that ever existed, was built on the ability to make ordinary people obey unjust laws. When the people stopped obeying, the empire was already over. In 1947, India became free, the most powerful empire in history, defeated by a man in a white robe, with a handful of salt, 5 stories, 5 lives, 1 mineral. A nameless woman, 8,000 years ago, who taught us how to survive winter. Marcus, the Roman soldier, who marched into Gaul for a pouch of crystals. Yusuf, the boy from the Sahara, who watched gold and salt balance on a scale. Pierre, the French father, who was hanged for trying to feed his children. Gandhi, the small man on the beach who broke an empire. All of them, connected by the same white powder that you have on your dinner table right now. So how did the most valuable mineral on Earth become so worthless? In the 1800s, new industrial methods made salt cheap, mass-produced, available everywhere. The price collapsed by 99% in less than a century. A substance that had been worth its weight in gold for 10,000 years suddenly cost less than the container it came in. The wars stopped. The taxes ended. The smuggling died. The empires that had risen on salt fell, and the substance that built civilization was forgotten. Today, we pour it on icy roads. We dump it in the ocean. We throw it away without a second thought. But the next time you reach for the salt at dinner, and you casually shake a few crystals onto your food, I want you to remember, you are holding the substance that made human civilization possible. You are holding the thing that paid the Roman army. You are holding the thing that made an African king richer than every modern billionaire combined. You are holding the thing that hung Pierre. You are holding the thing that freed India. You are holding a story that began with a forgotten woman 8,000 years ago who dropped a piece of meat into a puddle and accidentally saved the human race. And nobody ever taught you, nobody told you, nobody mentioned it, because the history we are taught is not the real history. The real history is hidden in the small things, in the kitchen, on the dinner table, in the things we never think about. This was Spice Lore. If this changed the way you see the world, hit subscribe, because next week we're telling a story even more insane. A story about a single flower. In 1637, that broke an entire economy. A flower so valuable, men sold their houses to buy a single bulb. A flower that caused the world's first financial crash. The story of tulip mania. Welcome to Spice Lore, the lore of the things you thought you knew,